let's take a look at the door and window tools now. Let's place a window first. So starting out, there's just a lot of settings in the doors and the windows. If you look at the main dialog right here, you'll see that there are, in the object library, a lot of different windows and doors and things. The reality is we only need this one window. If you were to select another window type, for example, the pens on it are not going to look right. If I come back into this window, it's also not going to have the correct pens or appearance. The default settings of these are just impossible to change, so we have to work from favorites on these. So these will at least get you in the right ballpark for operation and style, but they're all going to be the CAD image window, for example. If I come into the configuration, let's look at what this is in 3D here. Basic configuration settings. I have the glazing panel layout. If you have multiple windows joined together, multiple operation types, this little dialog right here, you actually select this to change the operation. Starting from any favorite, I can say that I have a left hung casement, for example, or switch it to a right hung casement. Any one of these operations will work. If you hit the plus button here, it's going to add a window adjacent to it. You can deselect and change this one to a right hung casement, for example. So you can create this sort of French casement sort of design. You can change the overall size here so the proportions match. You can also create grids. So you could say you've got 3 grids high on this one unit. I do not think it's advantageous, though, to select one unit and create a grid from that. So 2 and 5, for example. Because it only gives you this one operation type. You can't individually select those. So I think that the best way to approach a sort of multiple or complex unit, if you, for example, had a fixed sash and then a window above it, would be to say insert a row, a top row, and that's going to add a row above. The plus and minus is going to add one next to it. So with that selected, you can add a complex unit right here. But by adding them using the insert and the plus and minus options, you have the individual ability to select just one unit, for example. So I can deselect these and make this one a sliding window, or whatever it needs to be. You have that sort of flexibility to say that this is this design, for example. I guess that's the wrong slider, but that's the idea, is basically that you can set this to be unique per unit rather than using this this form grid option. So beyond that, the insert above, insert below, if you had a panel below, you could say insert panel below, for example, and set this to be like a louvered vent or a fixed panel. Fixed door leaf is actually a great way to create custom sashes. So on this one, for example, I could say that these are louvers down below. And then if I want to adjust the heights of these things, you can go to the key dimensions. Now this bottom piece right here, I'm guessing is this C dimension. I'm wondering why D is, yeah, it doesn't look like that gives you, oh, there we go. That's adding one by itself default. So this is the panel below. If I said that that was 2 feet, then maybe change the total height to 8 feet. And then this A dimension will give me that overlight where I can adjust that height as well. So these give you all of the settings you need for placing a window. And again, coming back into the glazing layout, if I need to edit that, I could say deselect and grab those guys and remove them out of there. Then I get this window. So that's adjusting the window operation. You can also mold these windows together, which is going to be found under, I believe, the shape settings. Here we go. So you could say left jam is, for example, a corner post, which does give you that corner post, but if you set that to 90 degrees, then it's actually going to give you the trimmed frame where you can actually do like a field mold window as an example. We're just going to use the standard frame here, and then that frame dimension set right here is B is the thickness of that. When A is 0, it's going to match the wall thickness. So if you had a custom thickness and you wanted to do your jamb extension separately, you could say that that's maybe a 4-inch window frame or whatever it needs to be there. The window is sized, so the 6-foot width and 8-foot height is to the outside edge of that frame. Additionally, let's see, there are exterior and interior trims as an option. I typically prefer to turn these off and either use the CAD image coverings or model them separately. But there are trim profiles, and you can set those to be whatever we need to see in the model. And then there's the inner frame settings as well. So there's frame, and then there's inner frame, which is actually this sash piece right here. You can set the head and the sill and the jamb widths to be different, but if they're not different, adjusting A and C is going to adjust that window sash. It is important to note that under the glazing panel layout here, if you set this to a fixed pane instead of a fixed sash, you lose that inner frame. So if you want a fixed window, it has to be a fixed sash, not a fixed pane. You also have the ability under glazing panel bars and muntins, you can select this upper piece. Now this lower piece is not going to be selectable, or it's not going to be editable because of the operation type. But this upper piece, you can set a grid to that. Now this A and B dimension is how many mullions will fit evenly, with this being the, I believe, the minimum size of that pane. So if I bump this up to 1.5, for example, the A and the B, maybe 2 feet or something, you can adjust how many fit in there. It's a bit of a guess and check design. There are fixed spacing, for example, where you could say it's going to be this spacing or fit to panel. The fixed spacing does leave like a little remnant, so you do have to kind of fuss with the offset on that. But generally speaking, the fit to panel is going to be your best option for getting those mullions evenly spaced within that area. There are occasionally settings in here that you'll have to go to the all parameters for and start digging through pens and things like that. But that's sort of a troubleshooting thing that you can look at the BIM blog for. Once you're ready to place the window, all you have to do is hover over the wall. Notice you get that little sun icon. That's the direction that the door or window is opening towards. So in this case, the window's open outward, and I can place the swing. Now that window is not the full width of the wall because I've set that frame. There are even options in here for wrapping the finish around under opening display, display options, somewhere in here. You can also set the opening distance in 3D. So here in floor plan, for example, I could set it to be open. Well, it's a fixed window, so it's not going to be open. You can set it to show open in 3D if it is an operable window. In this case, because it's a fixed panel, it's not going to be operable here. Plan view items, you can show things on or off. You can also set these to use the model view options. So the level of detail is going to be dependent on the model view option settings and the view settings. And that's really all there is to placing a window. It's important to make sure that you do not turn the window markers off. If you were to, for example, say that this has no marker because you want the window markers off and come back in and place the window marker, the default marker type has to be reset manually, meaning you have to go back and manually adjust the settings of that marker. There is no favorite for the dimension marker independent of the window itself, which means you're basically throwing the whole window out and starting over. Now the doors are very similar to the windows. In fact, the CAD image doors kind of piggyback off of the window script. But we are going to use the favorites again. And we're just going to pick a door that's close, similar to the windows. I could pick any door in here. It's going to give me a good starting place for getting the pens, the marker type, all of that set. So if I select this door and then go to my door type, instead of glazing panel layout, it's a door, so we have this door type. And I can say that there's different doors right and left, or same doors right and left, and I can say that there are 2 on each side. The door now, this 12-foot 1.5, is because there's a 3/4 inch frame all the way around. So I would want the height to be 8 feet 0.75 inches. So it's accounting for that 3/4 inch frame. And then the door leaf is 8 feet. Coming into the leaf settings, I would see that. Here, I could say that maybe this is like 24 feet. So it's going to give me 6-foot wide door leaves. And then these might be surface sliders, pocket doors, whatever they need to be here. So the surface slider is the example in the typical practice model. Here you can see that the leaf height is, for whatever reason, calling out this weird height. I think we can just change that here. Oh, you know what? It's probably the frame because it's accounting for the frame, and I don't know why that is. Yeah, so we would want this to say 8 foot 0.75 inches because it's that 3/4 inch piece right here. It's probably accounting for some offset. Normally with the doors, I set it sill to story and set that at 0, so that way even if the wall stretches up or down, the door or window doesn't move with it. The next thing is the door leaf type. And in the door leaf settings for CAD image, you're going to see that there are all of these thumbnails here. There's 3 different colors on there. The lightest teal is referring to the glazing. If there's anything in the settings that talks about glazing or glass, it's talking about that lightest teal. Some of these don't have that lightest teal, right? This 1B door type has just the darkest and medium type. So that's talking about this panel insert. So here I could say that panel insert matches my windows, but I want to use this type, so it's that panel insert at the bottom and the glazing at the top. You have control over where that A line sits. If I wanted that to line up with that window I had, then I can drop that down. And then I have the glazing for the panels themselves, where I could say that we have this glazing type, just like before. We can set this in the windows. We can set it to 2.5 or 2.5. Whoops, not 0.25. 2.5, and then I can kind of play around again that guess and check. I don't have the same adjustability as I had with the window, where I could say exact dimensions. It's just going to be best fit, with this being the minimum dimension. If you have additional pieces, like say a transom or what they're calling an overlight, you could set that here. So that would be under C if we had a built-in transom. I will say this, I think that most of our projects are going to insert those as a separate unit, so we have more control over what the frame and the alignment and the design and the trim is. Using the integrated layout here may not give you the same versatility and flexibility. The frame, for example, doesn't give you that mullion frame in between. You have to set the mullion size differs, and then you can come in here and say that D is whatever, 6 inches. And that'll give you that unique, you could see there in that thumbnail, hopefully, that the mullion in between the door and the transom got thicker with that 6 inch. Or if I really exaggerate it, I can make it like a foot. I also have the overlight and side light individual, so I could say that the main panel, right panel, left panel, it has a different operation. So it doesn't have to be just a fixed pane. I can say that it's a fixed sash, and it adds that frame in there. I do also have that inner frame, which is that sash. That's going to be that frame around that unit. And then I have my glazing bars, which is going to be the glazing bars for the side light, the overlight, or if there's a corner condition. Here for the overlight, I'm going to say basic bars again. Or is it here? Or maybe it's just not going to work. Sometimes these CAD image pieces get to be super glitchy, and I can't explain why some features work and some features don't. But again, that's just for further proof that sometimes modeling these things with separate components, separate elements for the overlights and things is just the better solution. It gets to be too buggy to rely on these tools, but they really are still the best tool for modeling complex doors like this 4-panel sliding door. Same thing as with the windows. The little sun symbol indicates which direction the door is swinging into. So you can technically say that this door is swinging into this room, and then flip it so that it's actually orientated outward. And again, this is just sort of further examples of how buggy these doors get. It, for some reason, reduces down total width. So place it, adjust it, fuss around with it. I can't explain what's going on here, to be honest. Probably has something to do with the door type not matching. Let's see if that works. There we go. So there's just weird kind of, I mean, it's not even nuance, it's just bugs with the doors. But again, going back to the ArchiCAD library and looking at the object library, especially with regard to sliding doors, this is what we have. This is it if we use the ArchiCAD doors. So we do want to stick with the CAD image doors for now. They are sort of the best tool for creating these complex pocketing and sliding doors that allow us to have sort of unique flexibility and versatility, right versus left, and number of panels. So that's all for the door and the window tool for now.